And welcome everybody to the PCS Like a Pro show. I'm Megan Harless, your host as always, and we've got a really good show lined up for you today, talking about a very important topic that we get a lot of questions about in the group. So hopefully we can help clear up any misinformation that you need to be prepared and set up for your upcoming PCS. Before we dive into all of that, I just want to remind everybody that we know some folks are coming down on short notice orders or they're getting their orders late. Just keep in mind, as soon as you get your orders, it's important that you get on DPS and that you get your move set up. And that way it gives it time for your transportation office to be able to get your move assigned to a company. It gives your company time to get your move planned, to get the crew that they need, the size of truck that they need. So make sure that you get on DPS to get that set up. Also, keep in mind that all of the communication that comes in from your TSP and from DPS is going to go to whatever email you have assigned in DPS. So a lot of families put in their spouses, the service member's email, service member is deployed or TDY, may not be receiving those emails in a timely fashion because they have no service, not able to check regularly. It's okay to put the spouse's email in there if you need them to be able to get that information and being able to handle that move while the service member is otherwise engaged. So just a few reminders, because PCS season is coming up and you don't want to be caught, 10 days prior to needing to leave and trying to figure out what you need to do and who to contact for that. So we're going to dive right in today because, like I said, we got a lot of good information coming for you. Lots of questions that we usually get asked into the group. So we're going to be talking about insurance today and what you need to know about insurance with your move and how all of that kind of ties together. So today with us, we have Bryce Palmer, who's joining us from Armed Forces Insurance. So Bryce, just want to say thank you for joining us today. And if you could just take a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. First off, I always enjoy doing these podcasts and webinars just to get information out there and answer questions. It is PCS season, so everybody's got a lot of them. But yeah, my name is Bryce Palmer. I work for Armed Forces Insurance. I am I guess my official title is the Assistant Vice President of Affinity Programs. But what that essentially means is I do a million things, including educational podcasts and discussions like these. I've worked for Armed Forces Insurance for the past 6 years. Prior to that, I worked for a very large bank in insurance. So I've been in this industry going on 15 years now plus, helping families with their insurance needs. The last 6 of which have been helping folks like yourselves in the, with military moves, insurance, both here in the United States and in some cases overseas. So hopefully I'll have some good information for you all and be able to answer some questions for you on what you might be thinking or what you might need of insurance. And my goal is that you take away 1 or 2 things out of here that help you coming up here in the next few months.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're excited to have you here today to kind of help explain to everybody what it is that we need and why we need it. So let's start off with why is it important for military families to carry some type of insurance policy during their move?
Absolutely. And not only during the move, but anytime, but definitely during the move. I think it's simply put, peace of mind. Peace of mind for you and your family, knowing that you will have another layer of protection for your personal property as you move from one duty station to the next. We all, I'm sure all of you are aware, if you're going through a government move, there is the ability, there is money in place or I guess the ability to make a claim if certain things happen to your property. But talking to families, I was talking to a coworker today who's active duty military spouse. Her husband's been in 22 plus years. She's moved countless times. 4 times in the last 2 years, and that's not counting everything she did prior. And she was relaying some of the stories that she had, which every time I hear them, I just kind of shake my head. And though that is in place through the government, through your transportation office to make claims, having insurance is an extra layer of protection because those claims that you can make have limits. And the insurance is there to help back that up and fill in the gaps on many situations. And I can't say all, but on many situations that can arise for a family.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just want to remind everybody as we're going through this, if you've got, questions about scenarios or situations you're going through, feel free to drop them into the comments. We're more than happy to ask them. because we know everybody's situation is kind of different. And so if you've got something, let us know what it is and we'll see what we can get answered for you. So many people, they usually have homeowners if they own a home, but usually they go to sell it when they PCS, and that policy will end when they sell that home. A lot of times they think we'll wait, we'll get renter's insurance or add the homeowners once we get to our next location. Why is this a bad idea to do that waiting period?
Well, it's a bad idea because it creates a donut hole in coverage or a gap in coverage. So in this scenario, you sell your home, you think, oh, got to cancel the insurance to, I don't own the home anymore. And that is something where the home policy, once you cancel that insurance, your personal property coverage ends as well. The renter's policy, you're moving from, I don't know, Fort Drum to Fort Hood. You cancel in Fort Drum and then you move and you start it up in Fort Hood, say 2 weeks later. Well, you leave that 2-week gap where maybe, your personal property is covered again through the through what you can claim through the government. But often that money is not enough if there's a total loss or a catastrophic situation, and you want to be able to have something in reserve. So keeping a policy in place, whether it be your home or renter's insurance from that state you're moving from, is extremely important. I can't speak for all policies, but I'm pretty 99% of the policies I've ever seen for a homeowner's insurance policy will cover your belongings up to 30 days post selling of the home. So as long as you move within that 30 days and your belongings get there, that policy will remain in effect as long as you keep it in effect paying on the policy. So keeping that coverage up and through that move is extremely important, just to make sure, again, it goes back to the first thing I said, that peace of mind to know that if something goes wrong, you've got as much protection as you can have. And really, I mean, when you're talking days or weeks or maybe even a month, it's not that expensive to keep that going for that long. And that's the same for renter's insurance, making sure that one policy goes and cancels and the next one begins, doing a state to state move if that's the situation with your insurance, just making sure that goes through. So that's why it's important to keep those from moving, or to keep those in place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to remind everybody, so what the government, the military, when you ship your goods through the military contract and movers, that it's at $6 per pound up to $75,000 is the max cap. So if it takes $150,000, $200,000 to replenish what's in your home and you have a catastrophic loss during the shipment of your household goods, the max you're going to get would be that $75,000 depending on how heavy your shipment is, which is why you need to be able to carry that. And it's true, right? With most with policies, like you can just keep it in place and you can just call and update the address when you arrive somewhere else, as long as that policy covers in transit and in storage.
Yeah. So every policy is different. So it is always wise. And you'll hear me say this again, to talk to your agent and talk to your company, whoever you have. Home policies and renters policies can be different. So I'll take our company, for example, Armed Forces Insurance. Our personal property or renter's policy actually covers you worldwide. So if you start out, I'll use the example of Fort Drum to Fort Hood. You start out in New York and you move to Texas, all you have to do is call and update the address. But even if you forgot 6 months later, we're still going to cover you because we have worldwide coverage. I know there's a few other companies out there that do that. Some of the other national carriers that may not handle military all the time, they are state specific. And once you move and your address has changed, they're going to require you to rewrite within that state. So keeping on top of that is very important, but keeping again, all of them have a provision to give you time to move to the next location, because again, nobody can move in a day. Or at least not across country anyway. With homeowners is a little different. For most companies, homeowners is state specific. So they generally have that 30-day personal property coverage or window on there. So you two things, you can always backdate a cancellation on home insurance and on renter's insurance. So it's best to keep it in place till you get to where you're at. Then you can call it and say, oh, I got here 2 weeks ago, cancel it, effective, I don't know, April 15th instead of April 27th, which is today. So just talk to your company. It's always best during a move. It's not the funnest thing in the world because it's insurance. Let's face it, it's not fun. But talk to your insurance agent, talk to your company, and make sure you have a plan set up for that move. And they'll be able to best direct you on how to layer your coverage so it's protected throughout.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Insurance can feel kind of intimidating sometimes because it's one of those things we know we need it, but it's just like an expense we don't want to pay for, but we're happy if we do have to ever utilize it. But then I don't know, it feels intimidating sometimes.
I don't want to pay for it, but I mean, car insurance, you have to have it. If you buy a home, the mortgage company makes you have it. A lot of times property management companies with renters complexes or in the government housing, a lot of the government housing providers or the privatized housing providers make you have it now. So unfortunately, it's something we all have to have, including myself. So yeah, but no, I don't want to pay for it either, believe me.
Yeah, it's always one of those expenses. Like we hate seeing that money come out each month, but it's in the event of an emergency, like we're so glad like we have that and that it steps in to help cover things. So which kind of leads into the next question. So in general, like how does an insurance policy help in the event that someone's household goods are lost or damaged during that process?
Absolutely. Those are two good questions. And I'm going to take those in two different points because they're the most common thing that happens to your personal property in a move, but they're handled differently. So I'm going to be careful here because again, each policy is different. You're going to hear me keep saying this over and over again. Home or renter's policy, I will say 80 to 90% of the policies out there, and this isn't just the companies that handle military, this is anybody you might have, are generally not, we'll take lost first, items that are lost are generally excluded or not covered from a policy. And I say this generally. The base policy of a renter or a home policy, an item that's lost, they're just not going to cover. You're going to have a time it was taken, and that's usually stolen, a police report, something had to have happened to the personal property. Now, I say that for those of you who don't have more of a comprehensive policy. For companies, there are some companies out there that have more of a comprehensive policy that will include on their homeowners and on their renters policy provisions for what's called mysterious disappearance or lost items. That's just a fancy word for a lost item. You need to make sure your policy covers against mysterious disappearance. Many homeowners policies do not. Many renters policies do not. Companies that handle military will often have either an endorsement or have it built in. So like on our renters policy at Armed Forces Insurance, we have a comprehensive endorsement that will cover mysterious disappearance, lost items, other things like earthquake, flood, things down the line. So it expands what the policy will have. But if you don't have that provision on your policy, the lost item insurance, that's one thing they will not cover. So I don't want to make it seem like insurance is going to be this end all be all for lost items. Megan, I'll stop there for a second. Do you think that answers the lost items, or is there anything else you'd like me to clarify on that?
No, I think that works for lost items, unless anybody chimes in the comments for more clarification questions. And I do see a couple questions in the comments. We'll get to those. I've got a few questions tailored around what you're asking, Julie and Destin. We'll get to those in a minute. But no, I think that does a good explanation of how insurance works with lost items.
Okay. So damaged items is, again, damaged items is going to all depend on how your items were damaged. So most, if not all insurance carriers, and again, there might be one out there, there's hundreds of insurance carriers out there looking for your business. But once you hand your property off to the movers, what I will call care, custody, and control, essentially they come in, box it up, it's on the truck. Any damage, rough handling, improper packing, those generally tend not to be covered by an insurance policy because it is in someone else's care. Insurance policies are there to protect you, but they will also look to say, who else is at fault here? They're responsible. The movers need to pay. And that's where the claims through the transportation office would probably go or need to come from. So anything with rough handling, rough packing, unless your policy has a specific provision for it, you're probably not covered. So that table that shows up broken, that vase that's broken, I don't know, we could go down the list. The TV that has a hole in it, what did I hear yesterday? the table that had motorcycle marks because somebody put a motorcycle on top of the table and it in transit marred the table, generally not covered. Would be covered. You'd have to go through the mover themselves. Now, areas that would be covered, these are things that happen too. Let's say the moving truck catches on fire. A storm damages the truck and damages your belongings. A tornado, I mean, I could go down the list of those things. If there is a damage to the personal property that is covered under the policy, then the policy will pay. So we've had it. We've had two situations. One, moving truck fire. Truck caught on fire on the interstate. Some of you, I know when I do these, someone will raise their hand or put in the comments that, yep, I've had that happen, or I know someone who's had that happen. Fire is a covered peril or a covered event. It happens. We've also paid out on a claim where someone's had our comprehensive policy and they've had a sectional couch and half the couch shows up. The other half is essentially in the ether. It's gone. Who knows where it went? Half a sectional shows up to your house. We've paid a claim on that where we basically replaced the sectional because you're not going to part out a sectional. So we basically replaced that because of the mysterious disappearance clause within our comprehensive policy. So again, it's policy by policy dependent on how that happens, and you're going to want to check with your agent to make sure these little holes and gaps are covered for you, especially during a move.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because that's always something we hear a lot every season is the company, the moving company only paid this much, but we need to continue to replace it. How do we, work that with our private insurance? Which, I mean, again, it's always good that you have a policy in place to be able to fill those gaps and to step in when needed. So my next question is going to get to the question that you had asked here in the comments, Dustin, about going OCONUS. We know every year many families go to or from an OCONUS location. And so what do these families need to know about insurance when crossing country lines, and especially OCONUS with shipping vehicles too? Like, how does insurance work when our vehicle leaves the States and ends up in Germany or Korea or somewhere else? Is there something specific they need to do, or does our policy from Texas just continue over?
No, good question. So taking personal property first, pretty simple. I'll say it's pretty simple, although we'll find out it's not if we dig into it, but it is generally pretty simple. Most U.S. national carriers will not cover, or will only cover a portion, usually 10% of the listed amount of property on either your renter's or home policy overseas or at a location that's not at the house. So that could be in other states as well. So when you're traveling overseas, most US-based insurance carriers will not cover your belongings, say in Germany, South Korea, pick the country. Now, that's why when you're moving overseas, it's really good to work with an insurance company that works primarily with military or government employees. And, ours is one of them. There's others out there, you know who they are. Those companies are set up for you folks. Our company and others cater towards military personnel and military families. So speaking from our company standpoint, our personal property policy covers you worldwide. You don't have to have a specific address on file. We have a mailing address. It could be to your parents' house because you're not going to get mail and say, if you're forward deployed somewhere, or, maybe you're in a place at a base that doesn't get mail, or you just rather go to your parents' house. We'll still cover your belongings in South Korea and North Korea for that matter, Germany, Europe, Asia, Africa, wherever it may be. So companies like ours will cover it worldwide, no matter where your claim occurs. So super simple on that. Get with a company like ours or like a military or government provider, and they'll have that provision to cover you worldwide. You really don't have to do much other than just change your address. Auto, it's going to kind of be my same advice. Most national auto carriers will only cover in the United States, Canada, or Mexico. And that's only if you're temporarily driving to Canada or Mexico. Generally, they won't cover outside of that geographic region. So we'll just say North America. When you PCS or travel overseas, many people like to take their vehicles with them. So what you're going to want to do is make sure you have an insurance company that, again, caters to military or government employees. And those companies will have the ability to set up a policy for worldwide or in the country that you're going to, whether that be Germany, Italy, South Korea, Japan, and you'll be able to get with them. So it essentially gets back to call your agent, see if they have that coverage, make sure you let them know where you're going, and they'll be able to set a policy for you. More importantly, when you load your car onto the, to get it sent overseas, you're going to want to ask about marine insurance or marine coverage while it's in transit, because that is not something that's generally covered on a typical auto policy. You want to make sure that you have an extra endorsement or provision that will cover what could happen to it. So there's that. And then also often the shippers will have a policy as well that you can buy from them. It might cost a little more money, but it's that peace of mind to know that when your truck gets over, or your truck or your vehicle or car, you've got, it's in one piece, or if it ends up at the bottom of the ocean, you've got something that's going to cover that so you can replace that vehicle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That marine policy piece is something new that I've learned today, just now from you, because that's, I think, everybody's worst fear is like we put our worldly possessions into a container that goes on a ship, and we all see the pictures and the videos, rough waters and containers are just falling off left and right into the ocean. It's just like, what if that's your car? What if that's your bed and your household goods? Like, then what? And so making sure that that marine policy is something new that I never would have thought of. I would have just been like, it covers it, right?
Yeah, it's just covered, right? No, and believe me, insurance companies like to carve out different things because it's so catastrophic that they, as a whole, as an individual, it's one thing, but if so many people experience it, they don't. So making sure you have those on there. And Megan, I saw that, I'm going to take it right now. Destin had a question on what if they're taking their vehicle by ferry to Alaska, or potentially loading it up and taking it to Hawaii, because that would be similar. So generally, you don't have to do anything special there. And again, I'm going to tell you to check with your insurance agent, because the minute I say in insurance, there's never 100%. Everything's always got an exception, and there's always some company out there that's willing to do more or does less than the other person. But check with your company. But generally, your car is covered because it is staying in the United States, or it is staying within that geographical region. So a ferry to Alaska, it passes by Canada. If they were to dock there, you would have coverage in Canada. If you go to Alaska, it's part of the United States. There is coverage there as well. So they will cover within all 50 states. And then same with Hawaii. Generally, they will cover while it is on that same transportation barge to, by barge, I say that as ship, the shipping container to Hawaii till it gets there. So generally with that, there's not much you have to do if you're staying within the U.S. Just make sure you check with your company, because there might be a company out there that has a provision or does need a separate endorsement for that. So I would just say check with your company, but you don't have to worry about it as much within the U.S.
Yeah, no, great question, Destin, because that's something that we see a lot too, that people have the questions, about taking the ferry to Alaska rather than driving through Canada, just trying to make sure all your bases, that everything is covered should something happen. It's one of those, we prepare for the worst and hope for the best kind of
Absolutely
when it comes to it.
And one thing I'll add, because you did say drive to Canada, and one, I recommend it. It's beautiful up there. Beautiful country. I did the whole deal. We could have a whole webinar just on a trip I took up there driving around.
We'll do that later this summer. Everybody is planning for their OCONUS move to Alaska, and we'll have Bryce back to tell us all his tips and tricks to get through Canada, what you need to see.
But I will say, if you are going to drive into Canada for any reason, especially moving, call your auto insurance company, because there is oftentimes a insurance card they will print out that will look different than yours, that they will send to you just so you have it in case you get taken by the beauty and run into something, or you drive too fast and one of the Mounties pull you over. You just show proof of insurance. So I would just say call just to get that document. They can send that over to you real easy.
Oh, awesome. So one of the things that we talk about a lot in at least my Facebook group is about having your own home inventory for claims of some sort, whether it's with the moving company or insurance. Do families really need to have their own inventory of what they have? And with this, like, do we need appraisals of things? Do we need photos and receipts to go with it? The
more information you have, the better. Now, I say this realizing that that is not the most fun thing to do on a Tuesday afternoon, Thursday evening, Friday, or whatever. But it will save you so much of a headache in the long run. It can be the difference between you getting reimbursed or paid for something versus not. And then going through that, just the stress and duress of having to deal with trying to prove what you have. And then the person who's handling your claim, either through through a government claim, through that 75,000, or through an insurance company saying, well, did you really have that? What was its value? Now you have to go research it. If you have documentation on what you own, the more you have, the better. Now, I'm not saying inventorying your socks. I don't do that. Maybe you should, but I don't do that. What I'm saying is any high ticket items, TVs, computers, electronics, gaming consoles, maybe even the games you have, because I know there's a lot of people who, they like to play video games, and that's a thing, and they're expensive. I mean, that last console that came out was close to $1,000. Have it, at a minimum, keep a spreadsheet of it. Take pictures of it. Keep the receipts. I know a lot of companies now are getting good with when you buy something. I know I bought a TV from Costco the other day, and I didn't buy it from anywhere, but I bought it from them, and they immediately put it on my thing so I can go in at any time and pull up what I ordered. I bought this TV. This is how much I paid for it. Keep receipts. Go into your house in each room and take a picture. Take a picture of the room, maybe from 2 different angles. So you can say, yeah, no, I did have that sectional. I did have this couch. I did have this TV. But the more information that you have on it, the better. So that way, if you're asked about the claim or you're asked about how much the value is, you can say, no, I did have this, and here it is. Real quick story. I had someone break into my house. This was 12 years ago now, maybe longer. And they took a TV and the gaming console and everything that's of value. They don't take your socks. They take your TV. Because I moved a lot like you all do, I kept all my original boxes. So we'd just move, we'd put it back in the box, and off we'd go again. And because I had that, I had all the serial numbers. And so I was able to give the police the PlayStation, the TV, the whatever they took. And they caught the guys because they tried to pawn it at a town that was 30 miles north of where I lived. But the pawn shop entered all that information in the system, and I had my stuff back within 24 hours. Maybe wanted to lose it so I could turn in a claim and get new stuff, but I didn't say that. I didn't say that out loud, but I was able to get my stuff back. But it made the whole process with the police report and a potential insurance claim. When I was talking to the adjuster, I had it all, and they're like, man, because you had it, this is going to go super smooth. Now I got it all back. I didn't have to, fulfill the claim. They didn't have anything to fulfill, but it was there, and it made the process easier. It made a real easy 24 hours after a traumatic event. I mean, getting theft is not a fun event. I'll stop and I'll kind of transition over into, you said appraisals. Mm-hmm. If you have high ticket items, again, I said TVs, furniture, but let's get into art, jewelry, antiques, coin collections, collectibles. Absolutely, positively have an appraisal, an up-to-date appraisal. And what's up to date? 3 to 5 years, especially now with the cost of everything going up. 3 to 5 years to have that, because 1, you'll need it, but 2, and we'll probably talk about this in a bit, you might need to schedule those items for a special policy that covers worldwide, and if there's mysterious disappearance. So that way, if your wedding ring falls off, or your engagement band, or your family heirloom, we can't replace the memories, but we can replace the item itself, or at least get you monetary value to replace it with something different. So having updated appraisals is key, because again, the price of gold, the price of silver, the price of diamonds, they do nothing but increase. That's why everybody wants them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm going to drop a link into the comments. This is to our Google Drive of free resources. And so we've got on there some spreadsheets of like inventory spreadsheets, different formats to be able to help you inventory your home. One of the things that we always encourage people to do is the picture piece of everything. So stand in the middle of your room, face one wall, take a picture, turn 45 degrees, take another picture. Go stand in your kitchen, open the cabinets, and take a picture. You don't have, as Bryce said, you don't have to inventory that you have 12 pairs of white socks and 13 pairs of black socks, but having at least that picture inventory when you know something is not showing up, but you can't remember exactly what it was, you can at least go through the pictures and be like, I know it was in the living room. Like, oh yeah, that weird end table that we had stuck in the corner that had a lamp on it didn't show up, and this thing didn't show up. And you at least have a photo evidence that you did have it at your last home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it always seems like the things that we don't want broken get broken, and the things that, like, you know, we're happy to slip somebody $20 to break that chair or to break that table because, like, we're over it. But our good spouse is like, but it's perfectly fine. Like, we don't need to replace it. Like, we'll keep it. You know, it comes that what was it? Friends. The moving day episode of Friends where Monica is like slipping a 20 to the mover, and it's like the white dog statue. And she's just like, if that falls off the back of the truck, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Right.
You know, I feel like we have some of that. And it's like, why? Like, can't you break this and not that?
It's so true. It is. It's the thing that you don't want. The thing you don't want damaged will get damaged.
Yeah, no, absolutely. True.
Yeah.
So the next question I got for you, and Julie, the question that you had asked earlier at the beginning of the episode, this is going to kind of tie into that about how much insurance do you need? So when we look at getting an insurance policy, is there a general rule of thumb where a standard policy works, or a threshold where we would need to consider a floater or something specific?
Yes, absolutely. So most renters, most homeowners insurance have limitations on certain items. Namely, there's those high value items, jewelry, antiques. It's going to be your coin collections, stamp collections. There's still a lot of people who have those out there. They might move into other collections now. I have a list here. Let me see what else could be on that list. Furs, manuscripts for anybody who writes, rare books, firearms and weapons. I know a lot in this community have firearms. I know I do. I have them specially scheduled because there's limitations. Cameras, silverware, musical instruments. If any of your children play trumpet, trombone, mine plays the cello, all of those are expensive to replace, and all of those can be specially insured or put on a special schedule. So what that does is it doesn't necessarily remove them off of your home policy, but it provides a better coverage for those items, and it expands that coverage. And it expands it not only from the location you're living at, but it takes it worldwide. So it doesn't matter where you're at. I use the example that you could take a vacation to Japan, and you're in a hotel and you take your wedding ring off, you wash your hands, you dry them, you leave, you're in a hurry because you're going to miss your flight. And there's the wedding ring sitting on your dresser or on the, I guess the vanity or whatever there. It's just gone. You never get it back. You don't know where it's at. If you have a special personal articles floater on your home insurance, or what we call a VIP policy, a valuable items policy, doesn't matter where that happens at. Doesn't matter how it occurred. You lost it. It's taken care of. Diamond falls out of your ring, just the diamond. You can't find the diamond. Well, they'll actually pay to repair or replace that diamond. So having an article like that of any of these high value items, and again, it's the fine art, the antiques, the firearms, rare books, crystal, china, jewelry, anything over, I would say $500 consider, because most policies, like for jewelry, many policies will only cover $500 for one single item on a theft. So yes, it covers theft, but it will only cover up to $500. So a $5,000 ring, you're only getting a fraction of that money back. So anything like that, I would consider scheduling it. It's really actually very inexpensive. And again, it covers that mysterious disappearance. It covers that lost item. It covers wherever you're at in the world. And you don't have to worry about it. It's that peace of mind that I talked about in the beginning.
Yeah, and I'll get that list from Bryce of everything that he had mentioned, and we'll get it added as a document into our Google Drive of free resources, so you can go back and reference it. Because as you were saying some of those things, I was thinking, like, we've got some of that, and we don't have something specific for it, and we probably should now. Again, with this, making sure all your bases are covered, so should something happen, you're not out on one thing or another. So With all this, is there insurance that families can get for just like a few months for extra coverage, like during the move, something like a supplemental option to, maybe like we are moving, but I know that's what the moving companies will provide, but I want like something extra to make sure mold is covered kind of deal?
Good question. The answer is, I'm going to say generally not, but kind of. So when you're in that situation, if it's going to be a couple months and you're between houses, one, always check with your insurance company. I'll say that. They don't generally tend to say, yeah, we've got a short-term policy that will rent, or you're moving from a homeowner to another homeowner, but you need a 2-month policy. The renter's insurance and the home insurance aren't designed to be short-term policies for a month or two. They're designed to be for over a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Some of our members, 50 years, just depending on the policy. But they don't intend to be for that short period. Now, that's not to say that a company won't write that. And that's not to say that a company won't extend that. I've done it before where I've had a homeowner who, again, we'll just use the New York to Texas. They're moving from New York, getting to Texas, but it's going to be 3 weeks. Actually, the one I had, they were moving from Brazil to Virginia, is another example where I was like, you know what, we don't normally write a 2-3 month renter policy, but because you are a valued member, I'm going to go ahead and do that for you to get you through that coverage gap. So companies will make exceptions all the time in those scenarios. So check with your company. But often, a lot of times, the best bet too is go to the carrier or the person who's taking your goods. They'll oftentimes have a short-term solution for that, where they'll be like, yeah, you can buy our policy. Yes, it costs a little more, but again, you're only doing it for 2-3 months. So that cost far outweighs, I shouldn't say that, the benefits far outweigh the costs, because if there is a fire or something does happen to it, you're going to want some coverage for it versus you getting there and all of a sudden the box doesn't show up at your house, or half of it shows up, or half of it lit on fire because the moving truck lit on fire and you didn't have coverage. So I would definitely look to whomever's taking your items to see if they have any coverage, and then also check with your insurance company to see what they can plug in short term. Generally, they won't have a lot, but like I said, they usually, see what they can do to work something out for you in that, I guess, that 2-month time period.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The big common theme here is to check your policy, because not, as we learned with any business, with any industry, not everything is created equally, and not everything is the same across the industry as well.
And state to state, every
Mhm.
state's different. Each state has different provisions. Florida rules are different than California rules.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that can change a policy. And then each year they bring out new policies, and they're all worded a bit differently. So the 2011 policy is different than the 2021 policy, even though they're about the same. Yeah, it's always different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So besides what we've already covered today, is there anything else that families should know about insurance and moving with it?
So I think there's 2 things, and one I will have already repeated ad nauseum, so I'll save that for the end. The other one that I'll say is anyone who's doing a move and is doing a do-it-yourself move, a Diddy move, and you're renting a U-Haul, a Penske truck, you name the truck, I would recommend, and I'm not shilling for these companies, I would recommend getting the coverage, the damage collision waiver coverage for the truck itself. You might, oftentimes they'll offer for personal property, but if you feel you've got enough for insurance, you don't always need to take it. I didn't always take that because I felt my policy covered me enough. But the damage to the vehicle itself, your auto insurance will cover if you run into something. They'll cover the liability side of it often, but they will not cover damage to that rental truck. That is usually excluded from your auto policy. So if you are getting we'll just use U-Haul, I always buy the collision and damage waiver, because that way, if I run into something with that truck, I don't have to worry about replacing that truck. I can walk away. And if damage happens to the top, it's inevitable. You get in those older neighborhoods and trees are hanging. You want to make sure there's, and they scratch the top, they will charge you for that. And you want to make sure that you don't have to worry about it. You can just flip the keys and walk away, and it's peace of mind. And it usually doesn't cost that much to do. I recommend that just to cover yourself. Other than that, what's the one thing that you can do? talk to your insurance company and talk to your agent. Because again, every company is different. Companies like ours and other military and government companies, we know you call, it's PCS season. I mean, I've been writing blogs about it. We're doing this. You call and we're like, yep, you're moving. We got you. This is what you need. This is how we can best protect you. Here's what it covers. We already know. So it's not a guess of what's going to happen. It's just a matter of, okay, where are you headed to? And this is how we need to structure it. Talk to your agent, make that call. It's worth the 10-minute phone call. Because a lot of times if you're already with them, they'll just say, yeah, this is all we need to do. And you're on about your day. You've checked that off your list of, I don't know, what's those sheets up to now? 40, 50, 60 checklists, maybe, or check boxes, maybe more.
Yes. There's a lot of them.
There's a lot. And it's, what you do in the beginning and the mid, and then right before you move and after. It'll allow you to check that box. But again, it gives you that peace of mind to know that if that truck lights on fire in the move, and that's happened, you can pull up the articles on it, that it's going to stink, but you'll have not only money to replace your items, but many of the policies will have money for you to stay while you're waiting for those items to come, or, you can start replacing them quickly because nobody wants to come out of pocket to buy clothes when you already own them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the tip about getting that insurance for the vehicle, like the rental truck and stuff, I will say it is definitely worth the little bit extra that you're going to pay per day. I know sometimes we look at it and we're just like, do I really need it? I will tell you this quick story of one of my friends that it was a rental car. She didn't want to get the insurance. Her husband said, yes, let's get it. So they ended up getting it. On the way back, taking the car back so they could get on the airport to get on a flight to go home, they were on the highway and there was something that fell off of like a semi truck onto the back of the car. And like the back of the car was kind of smashed down. They had to wait, do the police reports and everything. And as they drove this car back to the rental car facility, it was like limping in basically. And they were late for their plane since they had to stop for the police report and everything. And so basically the husband's like tossing the keys at the clerk and was just like, the car's back. And the clerk's like, but it's like fallen apart. And the husband's just like, we have the insurance, and like grabbed his suitcase and like took off to go catch the plane. Had they not had the insurance, what the process would have been like, and probably not catching their plane could have been a much bigger headache than what they actually went through.
It is, because my first job out of school was with a rental car company. So I could fill in. Basically, you'd have to fill out a form, give all your insurance information. Then they turn a claim against your insurance, but the insurance won't pay for the time the car's not in service. So you have to pay for that rental time. It's a whole deal. When you buy the insurance and you flip the keys like that, what you left out was that the branch manager for that rental car location was in the back room with tears going down his eye because that went his bonus for the month. So anyway, but that's why they offer it and that's why they sell it. And it is peace of mind. I mean, you flip the keys, they might ask for that police report, but other than that, that's that. And you go and you hit your flight and then they deal with the damage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. So the big takeaways here today, y'all, is that you need to check your policy. You need to call your insurance agent and speak with them. Make sure you're covered and you're good to go. Do that inventory. So should something happen, you've got it, whether it's the Excel spreadsheet, whether it's an app, whether it's with pictures, have those appraisals to make sure your stuff is covered, because it's prepare for the worst and hope for the best. It's something we hate paying for each month, but should you ever need it, you'll be very thankful that you did pay for it each month.
And I got to laugh, Megan. Dustin just put a story in the chat there, and she mentioned she made a trip to the Badlands, which is actually real close to the area I grew up in. So I've been there 1,000 times, and not a cloud in the sky, and literally within seconds, softball size hail. I've absolutely lived through that. I know exactly what you're talking about, because out there, and that is literally in the middle of nowhere. And you could be having a great day one minute, and those storms pop up out of the Black Hills and come across the Badlands, and the next thing you know, you're in a torrential downpour with rain, hail, lightning, and who knows what else. So I've been there. And yes, it hits those cars and those rental cars. You don't have to worry about it. It looks great one minute, it's not the next. So
yeah. So again, never turn down that insurance. When they ask you, do you want to spend the $23.95 a day to cover the vehicle? Just say yes and know that should something happen, like, you're good.
Yeah, and
It's great.
especially say yes on a moving truck.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, Bryce, thank you again for giving us your time today and joining us to make sure that we all know what we need to know about insurance and moving.
Absolutely, Megan. Thank you for having me. I always appreciate being able to come on and say a few words and answer some questions for everybody.
We greatly appreciate that. To everybody else, join us again next week, same time, same place. We'll be here with another great show talking about tips that you need to know for moving. We're going to be talking to a lot of our friends, other military spouses, and just having them chime in with, their best tip for moving or something, a lesson that they learned to kind of help us all learn from each other's experiences and get through this upcoming season. So join us again then. Until then, y'all have a great rest of your Wednesday. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you then.
Perfect.